Good morning, chemistry. All right, today we're going to talk about using mass percent. Now, this is using worksheet 2 for chemistry 1 and worksheet 3 for chemistry 2. Okay, so you can go back and play that again if it was confusing, but yeah. This is the first problem. I'm going to go through it, kind of walk through how to solve one of these and what the purpose actually is. So up to this point, we've calculated mass percent, but we haven't really used it for anything. Well, this is where we're actually going to use it. So mass percent will tell us how much of a compound is composed of that specific element. So for example, if you find the mass percent of sodium hydroxide, it's like 57% sodium. Okay? That means that 57% of however much sodium hydroxide you have is sodium. So if you have 100 grams of sodium hydroxide, 57 grams of that is sodium. This is useful for us because what we can do is actually calculate how much sodium is in a given mass and then use that to determine how much of that compound we need in our chemical reaction that we're going to perform. So this is one way to do it. There are a couple others that we're going to learn along the way, but this is one of the simpler ones. So I want to go through this. So we have to have the mass percent first. So mass percent is calculated with this purple equation. Mass percent is the number of the element times the molar mass of the element divided by the molar mass of the compound. So going back to that sodium hydroxide example, sodium hydroxide is NaOH. There is one sodium in sodium hydroxide. So the number of the element would be 1 because there's only one sodium. If we were doing sodium carbonate, then that would be Na2CO3. And so that would have 2 sodiums in it instead of just 1. So this would be a 2. So that's what the number of the element means. The blue equation we'll get to later. So in this example, it says I have 17 grams of sodium carbonate. What is the maximum amount of carbon that I could extract? So we're trying to determine what mass, or how much of this mass, is carbon specifically. So this is sodium carbonate, but how much of it is actually just carbon? So to do that, we need to calculate our mass percent for carbon first. But before we can do that, we need the formula for sodium carbonate. So we need to write that first. A little ionic naming review. So sodium carbonate, sodium is Na. Na. Carbonate is CO3. This is a +1 charge, and this is a -2, so we need 2 sodiums. So the formula for sodium carbonate is Na2CO3. So we need to calculate the molar mass for that first. So I'm going to pause this, get that number, and then I will be back to move on from there. Okay, I'm back. It's been a minute or two, and I lost my marker. Hang on. Okay, so if you do the math to calculate the molar mass for the compound, we get that the molar mass for the compound, according to the calculator, is 105. My head's kind of in the way. 9886. But because of the numbers that we had to use, we need to round this number to 6 sig figs. So that means the 6 is going to make the 8 become a 9. So this would be our molar mass of our compound, which is the denominator. I should get rid of that box, so that's going to be confusing. Okay. So we take this number, that's our denominator. Now what we have to ask is, what were we actually trying to find? Well, we're asked the maximum amount of carbon. So we need to find, and I'm pointing at the word here, not the equation here. The carbon is what we're after, so carbon is what goes in the numerator here. So the molar mass of carbon times the number of carbons divided by the molar mass of the compound. We have all three of those. So the mass percent of carbon is equal to 1. Am I short enough here? I think so. 1 times the molar mass of carbon, which is 12.0108, divided by the molar mass of the compound, which is 105.989. And that gives us come on, there we go. 0.113321 and more, but that's our last sig thing. The next digit is a 1, so we stop there. So that's our mass percent. So now we can use this mass percent, actually it should have units of percent because it's not multiplied by 100. So now we can use our mass percent here along with the mass of the compound to get the mass of the element. So if we take our given mass of the compound, 17.00, and take that times our mass percent, 0.113321, that will give us the mass of our element, which in this case is the mass of carbon. Come on. There we go. So 0.113321 times 17.00 equals 1.926. Next digit is a 4. But since there's only 4 digits in this number, we stop at 4 digits. So 4 makes the 6 stay the same. This is going to have units of grams of carbon. And that is the answer to this problem. Now, there are a lot of steps, but this should not take overly long if you know how to do your mass percent and your molar mass. The only thing we're really adding here is this blue equation and how to use it. Now, you might have noticed that I did not multiply times 100. When I did my mass percent, I didn't multiply times 100. That's because when you actually use a mass percent, you have to use this decimal form of it. Okay, you don't multiply times 100 and then use the actual percent. You only report it, or you only multiply times 100 up here in this purple equation. You only multiply times 100 if you're actually reporting just the mass percent. So if you've got the mass percent, then you have to divide it by 100 before you can use it in this equation. That's it for this video. One thing I do want to mention about this worksheet, the first 6 are pretty basic, just like this one. The second section, there is a little bit of extra information in those 3 problems to make sure that you know which information you're supposed to be pulling out, which information you're supposed to be using. The third section has lots and lots of extra information. Okay? On the quiz that is coming up next week, there will be 1 question similar to each section on this worksheet. So this quiz will be on Thursday. I'm making this video Wednesday evening. And this should come out hopefully Thursday morning if upload issues don't get in the way. So quick information on that. This will all be obviously available below. And that information's on the page below. That's it for this video. About 10 minutes. I'm going to stop it there. Have a wonderful night, and I will see y'all back in class.